Think of the treatment of Peter. We often think of Judas betraying the Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane and sometimes overlook what Peter did. That Peter and the disciples were indignant, angry with the Lord, that he would allow himself to be humiliated, which meant that they would be humiliated. And in their indignation that Jesus would not use his power to look after them, Peter said, let's go and look after ourselves anyway, because he's not going to look after us. Why, the attitude of the 11 was not much better than that of Judas. And a little later, Peter is standing in the courtyard cursing and swearing with all the skill he'd learned as a fisherman to prove that indeed he did not know that person who had let him down in the Garden of Gethsemane. So Peter's condition was terrible there. But then the cock crowed, and Peter looked up because Jesus had predicted that the cock would crow. And he looked up in fear, I'm sure, to see if Jesus had noticed. And Luke says that Jesus turned and looked straight at Peter. Now, as Peter knew God, what do you think he expected to see in Jesus' face? As we know God, what do you think Peter saw in Jesus' face? The face of the one who had knelt down the night before and washed Peter's dirty feet. We know what was in his face. This is the face of the one who cried over Satan. When there was no hope of winning Satan, he cried over Satan. So we know what was on Jesus' face. And Ellen White says, well, the Bible first says that Peter went out weeping. And Ellen White fills in the detail that he ran weeping all the way from the courtyard out to the very spot in Gethsemane where Jesus knelt down. And he became a new man, because now he really had seen the truth about God. A little later, Judas came in and threw the 30 pieces of silver down, and he looked at the same face. Or do you think God is two-faced? One face for Peter that led to the conversion of Peter, and an angry face for Judas that drove Judas to suicide. Was it not the face of the one who knelt down the night before and washed Judas's feet? Incidentally, the one who didn't want to expose Judas. When Jesus got through with his conversation with Judas and Judas left to betray him, Jesus had protected Judas's reputation so carefully that the 11 seated there or reclining there right around the table so close thought that Jesus had asked Judas to go out and get provisions for the feast. Now that's how Jesus treats a person like Judas. And Judas looked at the same kind face and ran out and committed suicide. And as I've been thinking more frequently in recent years, imagine if Judas had not responded as the wicked do at the second coming, but instead had reacted as Peter did and had run weeping from the judgment hall out to Gethsemane, catching up with Peter on the way, and the two had knelt down in the same spot and both had become new men. It'd be a tremendous ending to the story, but they both were free to do it. They both looked at the same face